Today's trip takes us to Blowing Hole Cave in southern Kentucky. The access road here is a little rough, and you have to cross at least 2 streams to get to the cave. I would be a little apprehensive about taking a small car back through here. The cave entrance is a stone's throw from where you park, and as you can tell, it's very pretty. The main entrance to the cave is settled in the side of the rock. I even heard there was a wedding at the entrance of the cave earlier this year. The cave length is currently surveyed at 5.1 miles long. Here's a map of the cave that Harry Goepel had hanging on his wall. This is another version that Bill Walden sent me. As you can tell, it's mostly a horizontal cave. When you look at the map, you will see notations that say continues, so there is still quite a lot of cave to explore.
I'd say my first trip in here was right about 30 years ago now. 86 was my first year paving, and we got in here that winter.
So you came in here when you were 9 years old?
Yeah. More like 24. I wish I was caving when I was 9. I did a little bit when I was 14 and 15. That was all on the scout.
There is a sump that precedes the main cave and is impassable during heavy rains. You definitely don't want to be in this cave if the forecast calls for rain.
This is a sump.
Yeah, this is the classic sump that keeps us out of the cave when it rains very heavily or for long times. It's a very dry cave except for this spot, and I guess the back entrance gets wet also, but this is where you have to be careful. If it's raining, you can't get through, or you shouldn't go through if you can, because it might flood while you're in the cave.
So how far down is that from this level?
It's about 5, 6, maybe all the way to the bottom.
Well, there's a crawler over there that's even deeper. You can take that way too. You want to do hands and knees the whole way through.
I haven't done that, so about 10, 15 feet, 10, 12 feet maybe.
And then how high has that water gotten when it's been sumped? Or,
So it can come to the ceiling in extreme conditions.
Yeah,
Extremely wet conditions. It'll come to the ceiling.
When I was here in August, it was sumped to the top of that lower level. It wasn't up here, but it was. I could get to where Buddy was, but you could just see it was all full.
I can remember walking up from back there, and the passage just ends in a puddle of water. It looks like back there.
as you are walking through the cave, you might see some painted rocks that have numbers on them. They were used by Randy Paler, who was doing a water flow study in the cave several years ago. Daryl's looking at what I call the soda straw cemetery in this cave. Someone placed some fallen or broken formations in this area, and it's kind of interesting to see how they were formed. The cave is owned by Charles Gibbs, who, by the way, designed the Gibbs Ascender, which is kind of a cool fact. The cave is on personal property, so you have to get permission from the landowner to get access to it. Regarding the survey history of this cave, Charles Fort was the first person to start surveying the cave back in 1957. Around 1970, Lou Simpson, Bill Walden, and Dave Biter did some additional survey work. Charles Gibbs did some surveying in 1974 and produced a map that documented up to 1.6 miles. More recently, Randy Paler and Bill Walden documented the cave as it's surveyed today. cave gets its name honestly. There is a constant flow of wind through most of the cave. Some people think the wind comes from deep water that is rushing through the cave. This windy condition has created some interesting formations, as you'll see later on in the pictures. The cave typically has a lot of water running through it and can only be accessed during the dry months of late summer and early fall. If you look very carefully, you will see debris toward the ceiling that has been washed in. So the water in this cave does get pretty high. We have a smaller group of cavers today, including Buddy Gibson, who's leading the trip, along with Harry Goepel, Daryll Marsh, and myself. Being a smaller group, we moved through the cave pretty smoothly. There are several choke points in the cave that might slow things up a bit if you're going with a larger group. The cave is not a technical cave, so to speak, and you really don't need climbing gear to see most of it. It definitely has some crawl spaces with some rocky floors, so you really want to wear knee pads. It's always fun to goof around with some bright lights and some large walls. As we were heading out of the cave, we spent about 5 hours underground. If you have a rope walker or a frog system, there is a rope stationed in the cave that will allow you to reach the upper section. We didn't see much critter life, but the formations were really awesome. You definitely want to bring a nice camera when you visit the cave. Just recently, Bill Walton found an upper section of the cave and shot some video of it. Here's a YouTube link if you want to take a look at it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.